The city streets were quiet. The usual hustle and bustle of the day had finally given way to the silence of the night. But inside Araf's heart, a storm was brewing, a tempest of emotions he couldn't quite control. He stood on the balcony of his room, the warmth from his cup of tea seeping into his cold hands, but doing little to soothe the ache in his soul. His mind was consumed by a single, persistent thought, a wish that echoed in the deepest corners of his being. I wish she was here with me today. His mind drifted back, pulled by the currents of memory to a day 3 years ago. It was the first day of college, a day filled with nervous energy and the promise of new beginnings. And that's when he saw her for the first time. Zoya. She was wearing a simple white kurti. Her smile was soft and unassuming, and her eyes held a gentleness that seemed to calm the chaos of the world around her. In that single, fleeting moment, it felt as if time itself had stopped just for him. The world faded into a blur, and all he could see was her, and right then, in that moment of stunned silence, Arav made a promise to himself, a decision that came straight from his heart. He whispered to himself, "I will definitely talk to this girl." The next day, driven by that newfound resolve, he found her in the library. Zoya was engrossed, her head bent over a notebook, her pen scratching against the paper as she diligently took notes. Arif's heart pounded in his chest, a frantic drumbeat against his ribs. He took a deep breath and approached her, his voice barely a whisper when he spoke. "Can I use your pen? Mine ran out of ink," he asked, his words clumsy and rehearsed. Zoya looked up, her eyes crinkling at the corners. She glanced at his shirt pocket and then back at his face, a playful laugh bubbling up. "But you have 3 pens in your pocket," she pointed out, her voice filled with amusement. Arrow's face turned a deep shade of red. He was caught, but then he heard her laugh, a sound so pure and melodious, it felt like the most beautiful music he had ever heard. It was a sound he knew he wanted to hear again and again. And just like that, with a clumsy line and a shared laugh, their friendship began. It started with small talk in the library, which soon blossomed into daily conversations between classes. Soon they were waiting for each other, their days feeling incomplete if they didn't see one another. Arif found himself looking for her in every crowd, his heart doing a little flip every time he spotted her. He didn't know what this feeling was, but it was warm, it was comforting, and it was all-consuming. One evening, the sky opened up and a gentle rain began to fall. They found themselves walking home together, huddled under a single, small umbrella. The wind picked up, carrying with it a sudden chill. Zoya shivered beside him, pulling her arms around herself. "I'm feeling cold," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the patter of the rain. Without a second thought, without a single word, Arav slipped off his hoodie. He gently draped it over her shoulders, his fingers brushing against her arm for a brief moment. Zoya stopped walking. She turned to look at him, her eyes wide and searching. The rain, the cold, the world around them seemed to melt away. There was a moment of silence, and then she spoke, her voice soft and full of a warmth that defied the cold. "You're really a good person." In that moment, looking into her eyes under the dim glow of the streetlights, Arav understood. This feeling that had been growing inside him, this connection they shared. It was more than just friendship. This was love. Valentine's Day arrived, painting the world in shades of red and pink. Arav had spent the entire night awake, not with books, but with a pen and a blank card. He poured his heart out onto the paper, every word a testament to the love he felt for Zoya. The next morning, his heart thrumming with a mixture of hope and fear, he called her to meet him in the campus garden. When she arrived, looking as radiant as ever, his hands began to shake. He held out the card, his voice trembling as he finally said the words that had been living in his heart for so long. "Zoya, I love you. I've loved you since the very first day I saw you." Zoya didn't say anything at first. Her silence stretched for what felt like an eternity, and Arav's heart sank. But then she took a step closer, and another. She closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him in a gentle, warm hug. She rested her head on his shoulder, and he could feel her breath against his neck as she whispered the words he had only dreamed of hearing. "I love you too." From that day forward, their two separate worlds merged into one. Their love story had truly begun. But life, as it often does, had other plans. It's rarely a straight path, and their journey was no exception. Troubles began to brew within Zoya's family. Unforeseen circumstances and parental pressures led to a heartbreaking decision. Her parents were sending her away to another city far from him. Arav was devastated. He pleaded, he argued, he tried everything he could to make her stay, to fight for their love. But Zoya, with tears streaming down her face, could only offer him a sliver of hope. "If you're meant to be in my destiny, we will meet again," she promised, her voice choked with emotion. And then she was gone. She left behind a void in his life, and Arav was left to navigate each day with only the ghosts of her memories for company. 2 years, 2 long years had passed, and now here he was, standing on the same balcony, holding the same familiar cup of tea. The memory of her was as vivid as ever, a constant presence in his solitary life. He sighed, the warm steam from the cup fogging up the cool night air. Suddenly, the sharp, unexpected sound of a car horn pierced the silence from the street below. Startled, Arav leaned over the railing to look down, and his heart stopped. There, standing by a car, bathed in the soft glow of the streetlights, was Zoya. It was her, the same gentle smile that could light up a room, the same kind eyes that had captivated him from the very beginning. She was wearing a beautiful sari, looking more stunning than he had ever remembered. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming, but the scene didn't change. It was real. Galvanized into action, Arav dropped his cup and ran. He didn't even bother with the elevator, just flew down the stairs, his heart pounding a frantic, joyful rhythm. He burst out of the building, and there she was, waiting. As he approached, a radiant smile spread across her face. "I told you," she said, her voice as sweet as he remembered. "If you are in my destiny, I will come back." He didn't need any more words. He closed the remaining distance and wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight as if he was afraid she might disappear again. The whole city, sleeping and silent, seemed to bear witness to their reunion. Zoya nestled into his embrace, and after a long moment, she looked up at him, her eyes shining. She asked softly, a question filled with all the hope and fear of the past 2 years. "You won't ever leave me, right?" Arav looked deep into her eyes, the eyes that held his entire world. He gently cupped her face in his hands and said with a certainty that came from the very depths of his soul, "Never. You are the journey written in my name, Zoya." And in that moment, under the quiet watch of the moon and stars, their new journey began. It was a love that distance couldn't weaken, a love that had only grown stronger in the face of separation.